Welcome to Couch Quarterbacks.
Hey guys, welcome to the Couch Quarterbacks Week 10 recap show. It's been a interesting Week 10, a lot of blowouts.
Yeah, that very weird week, Stein, because we had all the upsets last week, and then, like you said, a lot of blowouts this week. A couple of upsets, but mainly just the kind of chalk blowouts that we expected. So, just like all of our recap shows, we're just going to go through the full rundown of the games. We'll start off with a Thursday night game since we filmed our preview show before the Thursday night game, and then we'll go all the way to the game on Sunday night, the Chiefs and Raiders game.
Yeah, we had an early filming of our show on Thursday, so that was able to actually give the kind of the X's and O's going into that game.
Yeah, we could actually preview it instead of we usually just recap that on our show when we film on Fridays. So.
Yeah, and we got to watch a little bit of that game as we had the Ravens in Miami taking on the Dolphins. Dolphins getting the early surprise of the week with a 22-10 victory and an interesting kind of regression game for the Ravens.
Yeah, Sam, we even talked about it during the preview about how we expected the Ravens to go in and obviously blow them out and everything like that most people would expect, and then that obviously didn't happen, but it's one of those things that we were saying how on Thursday night, just how you never know what's going to happen. Usually the Thursday night games are close, teams coming off of a short week and just the shorter time to game plan, and obviously it ended up benefiting the Dolphins as they were the ones that ended up coming away with the victory.
Yeah, Ravens have been on primetime a few times this year, so we're kind of expected them to be used to it, whereas the Dolphins, I'm pretty sure this is their first and potentially only primetime game that we've seen this year.
It started out very low scoring, Stein. I think it was 6-3 for the longest time, at least at some point into the second half.
Yeah, back-to-back kind of stinkers of low scoring Thursday night games. We saw that last weekend too.
Mm-hmm. And Jacoby Brissett gets the start once again for the Dolphins. Tua for the second week in a row is active, but they say that they're only going to use him in emergency situations. Well, we saw that he was able to end up coming in and playing because Jacoby Brissett in the third quarter goes down with a knee injury. Looked like it was going to be a serious ACL injury where he'd be out for the season, but apparently he got cleared and was able at least to go back into the game if they chose to do so. Flores wanted to stick with Tua, who's been battling the finger injury, and Tua is the quarterback that ends up finishing out the game and finishing the victory for the Dolphins.
Yeah, Tua will also be starting next week against the Jets.
Yeah,
so not a terrible.
Already announced that, which everyone kind of expected since he was healthy enough to go out there and play in relief, didn't have any sort of injury or setback or anything like that.
Yeah, not a terrible game against the Jets to try to get your feet under you again for Tua. I mean, he's been banged up, it seems, this past few weeks, even though he has been technically healthy. He just hasn't been 100%, which we really haven't seen 100% Tua.
I was going to say, I mean, he was on our IR with the rib injury very early in the season, missed a handful of weeks, and then once he came back, got that finger injury just about right away, so that's what being the backup these past two games, and now he'll finally go back to that starting role, and then, like you said, being able to start against a Jets team, that's definitely a plus matchup for you to kind of just get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, great game, hopefully, for them, but we saw how sneaky the Jets can be. But the Dolphins, a 3-7 record, they're really not fighting for much. I guess they're just kind of fighting for just, people playing for their jobs right now.
I was going to say, I mean, they're pretty much playing spoiler right now. You got two teams in the division, the Patriots and the Bills, that are both vying for playoff spots. The Patriots obviously being one of the hottest teams in the league over the past couple weeks, and then the Bills being the top seed right now in that division. So at this point, the Dolphins are probably just playing spoiler right now, trying to keep some teams out of the playoffs.
Yeah. For the Dolphins, Albert Wilson was good at receiving, the former Georgia State Panther, with 4 catches for 87 yards. Isaiah Ford also added with 4 for 84. Both of those guys were the two leading receivers, which you wouldn't expect.
Which is kind of surprising that the Dolphins ended up coming away with a victory with those two guys leading the way. Yeah. Obviously, both of them had long catches, and then Will Fuller and Devontae Parker both on the IR right now. So besides Jalen Waddle, there's not many pass catchers on this Dolphins team. Mike Gesicki had another goose egg like he did in week 1, so that opened up more opportunities for the wide receivers like those two guys. Really, the only other thing to mention for the Dolphins with Tua's stats, coming into the game late, 8 for 13, 158 yards, and he had a QB sneak for a rushing touchdown late in the ball game to kind of seal the deal in that one. So he was decent in that part of the game. So, like I said, he'll come out next week and be the starter. But on the Ravens side, Lamar probably having one of his worst games of the season, Stein.
Yeah.
26 of 43, 238 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Only 39 rushing yards as well.
For a guy who definitely is more of a rusher, 9 for 39, which also led his team with 39 rushing yards, is not what you want to see for a guy who can do it both. 26 of 43, not terrible passing wise. I mean, I would say that's good for Lamar.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's
standards.
a lot of passes for Lamar, 43 pass attempts.
But just otherwise, like just running the ball, just ineffective at all. Devontae wasn't good. Lev Bell wasn't good. You know, just guys weren't able to get it. Oh, as a team, 23 attempts for 94 yards rushing the ball. I guess most of the quote-unquote damage could have been done the receiving. Rashad Bateman had a pretty good game, 6 for 80. Mark Andrews, 6 for 63 and a touchdown. So great game for him. Mm-hmm. And then Hollywood Brown with a game he would love to forget. Again, 13 targets, only catching 6 of them for 37 yards. So another kind of just questionable game for him.
Yeah, he was missed on a couple of deep targets from Lamar. So a game to forget for him in this one. Sammy Watkins returning from injury. He had a fumble that ended up going for a scoop and score from Xavier Howard. So a bad game for him as well. So just overall, this is one of the worst performances from the Ravens offense. Just Lamar not having a good game. They weren't able to run the football effectively. Outside of maybe the Mark Andrews touchdown, really no one having a great day offensively for the Ravens. But even with the loss, the Ravens still in first place in the tough AFC North. Upcoming schedule for them, they've got a couple of divisional matchups, 3 out of their next 4 games. 2 of them against the Browns, who have kind of been struggling. They're right at 500, 5-5. They have the Steelers, and then they also have the Bears. So a couple of tough defenses overall between those 4 matchups. So look for the offense to try and get back on track, but it might be tough against some of those tougher defensive teams.
Yeah. Also, this was a snapping of a record. We saw them, lose that rushing record earlier in the season, but 51 regular season games of 14-plus points with that vaunted offense finally comes to an end. It was the second longest in NFL history.
Yeah, it was the Patriots back from 2009 to 2011 or something like. It was when it was the prime of Tom Brady, right, in those late 2000s. So.
Wes Welker, those kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line from this game, Roach, Ravens just got contained. I mean, when their quarterback is only rushing for 39. That's just not going to help.
Yeah, it was a great game plan from the Dolphins just in terms of their defense, just sending a lot of blitzes and really just confusing Lamar in that offense.
Yeah. Honestly, though, the Ravens do need this adversity if they're going to succeed. They can't just have everything handed to them. They're going to have to lose a few to get better and to really cement themselves, if that makes sense, to learn what they're bad at.
Yeah, and they've definitely had the adversity, too, with just having all these double-digit comeback victories and everything like that. So definitely nothing to worry about for the Ravens, just an off week for them.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We'll get this one out of the way pretty quickly. It was not a good game at all. The Falcons travel to Dallas and get just embarrassed 43-3. That is 40-point differential in favor of the Cowboys. I don't know what the spread was, but I'm sure the Cowboys covered it.
Yeah, they covered the spread, but I'm pretty sure the under actually hit in this ball game, even with the Cowboys getting 43
I did hear about that, yeah. Maybe that was the one
I think the over-under was 47.5, and so 46 was the actual number. So how many times is that going to happen where one team scores 43 and you still don't get the over in the ball game?
I mean, the name of the game was just nothing went right for the Falcons. Turnovers, a blocked punt, just things that weren't going their way. The offense for the Cowboys were doing what they wanted at will.
I mean, this was a 36-3 game at halftime. The Cowboys outscored the Falcons 29-0 in the second quarter. I think 29 points was the most that they've had in a quarter in franchise history. So it just got out of hand very quickly, and like you were saying, the Cowboys really just kind of did whatever they wanted on offense.
Dak wasn't even that spectacular. I mean, 24 of 31 for 296.
I mean, pretty much all the starters got rested in the fourth quarter.
Those are good numbers, but it wasn't. He didn't have to be spectacular.
We saw Cooper Rush and Josh Rosen in this ball game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. CeeDee Lamb and Zeke both got 2 touchdowns a pop. I also talked about that blocked punt for the Cowboys. It was on the Falcons goal line. Falcons also went for it on 4th down in no man's land, which really kind of...
Yeah, I think I saw it would have been a 50-yard field goal for Youngway.
Yeah, it was 4th and 7. I mean, it was definitely... I was watching it and saying, all right, let's not, and they did it.
It has ended up getting intercepted, right? Matt Ryan threw a pick. I know Trevon Diggs had another pick in this ball game.
Yeah, Trevon Diggs did have a pick. Also, Ryan got sacked a few times. I think only twice, so nothing terrible.
Yeah, we were really talking up Matt Ryan and talking about how he had a great 3 to 5 game stretch and then just absolutely came back down to earth in this ball game. Just 9 of 21, 117 yards, no touchdowns on the day, and then 2 interceptions, and just the icing on the cake for the Falcons quarterbacks. Josh Rosen makes an appearance in the ballgame, and on his first pass throws an interception. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, I mean, really, last week gave us a little bit of a gleam of hope for the Falcons, but I think the writing's really on the wall that we're really not playing for much this year. We're playing for, I guess, to get out of Matt's contract. There's going to be someone else under center in the next coming years, and we're also this defense is going to need to be improved. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going to have to happen, but having Fabian Moreau and just guys like that, and Nate Williamson or whatever that guy is, just should not be out there. That kid just gets embarrassed.
This was just the worst situation for the Falcons with them coming off of such an emotional victory against the divisional opponent, the Saints, where they always play them tough. They had the big lead. The Saints come back. The Falcons still end up getting the game-winning drive. And then, of course, the Cowboys getting embarrassed in Jerry's World at home against a Broncos team that's just kind of middle of the pack in terms of their production. It was just all kind of lined up for the for the Cowboys offense to just go off, and then the Falcons just to kind of lay an egg.
Yeah, Falcons missing, of course, Calvin Ridley due to mental health issues, and then Russell Gage not even getting a single catch.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times.
Second time that's happened in the past 3 games.
Exactly.
Now.
Kyle Pitts is probably the lone bright spot on that offense, as well as the offensive line. I will say, only allowing 2 sacks. I think everyone played decent on that offensive line. I think it's improving for them, but I mean, just this defense. Cordell Patterson also getting injured in the game with a sprained ankle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just another offensive weapon that they could be without, especially with a short turnaround playing on Thursday Night Football against the Patriots. They said Cordell Patterson is dealing with a sprained ankle, so with the short week, probably not going to be out there on Thursday, and honestly, his status is in jeopardy in the upcoming weeks even after that.
Yeah, I mean, this guy has been a revelation for the Falcons, and the fact that they could be missing him is not looking good for the future. This was also a Dan Quinn revenge game going against his former team. I really will say that I want to give credit to his players. I'm not going to give credit to him because, I think he has a lot better of a situation in terms of defensive players in Dallas compared to what he had in Atlanta. I mean, he has some guys, Leighton Vander Esch. He's got, Trevon Diggs, just some boys on his team.
Yeah, I would say comparatively to his last couple seasons with the Falcons, definitely some better players. Maybe more comparable at least to the Super Bowl Falcons team in terms of their defense compared to the Cowboys defense.
And this Cowboys team is definitely structured for a run compared to this Falcons team where I really don't know what they're structured for right now. To be quite honest with you, it's it's interesting because what we could see with this Cowboys team is them getting embarrassed, but then now coming back and embarrassing another team, and they could go on a tear. I think they're a strong team. They're definitely shoo-in for their division.
I think this Cowboys team is kind of set up how the Chiefs team has been in years past, where it's they have this elite level offense with just all the playmakers. You could list off 6 or 8 guys on their offense, and then their defense is decent. Definitely,
it has some names. Micah Parsons also too, the rookie, having a great season thus far.
Yeah, definitely worse compared to their offense, but at least all they really have to do is just not give up as many points as their offense can score.
I like that comparison to the Chiefs, and that actually is a perfect segue because they do play the Chiefs next week in what could be a really good offensive matchup with two, just they have names defenses, but pretty much they're I would say overrated defenses sometimes.
Yeah, and we'll get into the Chiefs. Obviously, is the last game that we'll cover, but them getting back to the Chiefs
form,
of old that we've seen over these past couple seasons. So that should be a very intriguing matchup in the 4:00 window next week.
Bottom line from this game: a mad Cowboys team and just a scared Falcons team. Just not a recipe for success.
Yeah, like I said, this was probably like the worst situation going into this week for like both teams. Just set up really great for the Cowboys and really bad for the Falcons.
Yep. Moving on to a surprisingly good game, a close one. Saints traveled to Nashville to take on the Titans. Titans were able to escape 23-21, and just kind of an ugly game, I would say, all around.
Yeah, they've just been able to find ways to win, Stein. I mean, in the 2 games since the Derrick Henry injury, they're now 2-0, getting victories against the Rams and the Saints team, both teams that are locked into the playoffs right now. And they've just been piecing together like ways to win. Last week you saw it was the defense and then the special teams getting into it as well. This week, once again, just the defense really stepping up against the Saints offense. And then kind of some unsung heroes on offense that were really able to get it done because you saw A.J. Brown just 1 catch for 16 yards in this ball game.
Yeah, also including with Julio on the IR. So, the passes were going to have to go to someone. Marcus Johnson comes out of really nowhere. 5 catches for 100 yards to lead his team. And then we already talked about, A.J. Brown really not being a factor.
Yeah, only 4 targets, which was 3rd on the team, which is even more surprising. He was getting locked up by Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, also, obviously with Freeman, with Henry being out, kind of rushing duties were led to Deontay Foreman and Adrian Peterson, who both really only combined for about 50 yards on 50 attempts.
I mean, as a team, they had 29 carries for 66 yards, so that's a little more than 2 yards per carry. So not the Derrick Henry type of production that you would see from him, but still just good enough to get the job done. Ryan Tannehill came in with a little bit of a stomach bug, said he wasn't feeling well when he woke up on Sunday morning, but he still had a serviceable game, 19 of 27, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a rushing touchdown with his signature little Jordan jump man.
Yeah, I gotta love that. He's been getting those almost every week, it seems.
Yeah, and when you talk about the Saints, with this being a 23-21 score, the Saints got a touchdown with 1:16 left in this ball game, and then they failed the 2-point conversion. Obviously had a chance to tie it at 23. It was a 2-point conversion from the 7-yard line because Adam Troutman had a false start, so it moved him back to the 7. And they wouldn't even have had to go for 2, but their kicker, Brian Johnson, obviously no Will Lutz this season. He hasn't been out there at all. He's out for the season, so they've had a couple different kickers in there. But their kicker now, Brian Johnson, missed 2 extra points in the ball game, so you figure that's the difference right there in the 2 points. So just tough on the special team side of things. It really cost the Saints a victory.
Yeah, and for the Saints, Trevor Siemian was actually pretty decent. Again, back-to-back weeks.
Even though 0-2 now without Jameis at quarterback.
19 of 34, a hair under 300 yards with 2 touchdowns, no turnovers for him. Taysom Hill, again, being used everywhere. 2 of 2 passing, barely any yards. Rushing the ball and receiving. I just don't know when they're going to give him the keys,
Yeah, that's what you talked about during our preview show, how they might not want to use him as the starting quarterback just because they lose him as that Swiss Army knife. So, once again, it'll be something to monitor over the next couple weeks because everyone thought that if Taysom was healthy, he would end up being the guy with the starting quarterback. They gave him the contract extension in the offseason and everything.
Yeah.
So, it's okay, well, this is his job. If something happens to Jameis, a lot of people thought that it might be his job just from the get-go.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he continues to get used as kind of this Swiss Army knife, use him just in every aspect on offense, or if they'll end up giving him the reins, letting him be the starting quarterback in this offense. So
yeah. I mean, right now, the Saints are currently the 6th seed, even though after back-to-back losses to the Falcons and the Titans, and a pretty could be a tough schedule heading up, going at Philly, going against the Bills and the Cowboys, who are both on good streaks right now. So could be an interesting matchup. Whereas the Titans have a complete opposite stretch. They got to take the Texans twice, the Jags, and the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, they just went through an absolute gauntlet of a schedule, and they rattled off They have 6 straight wins, 5 of those coming against teams that were in the 2020 playoffs. It's only the second time in NFL history that's happened, going back to the 2003 Eagles, a team that went to the Super Bowl. So just a nice accolade for them, as they've just been, like I said, even without Derrick Henry, they're now 2-0 without him. This is a team that lost embarrassingly week 1 to Arizona and then lost to the Jets back in like week 3 or week 4. And ever since that loss to the Jets, like I said, they've been on a tear, beating the Bills, Chiefs, Colts, Rams, Saints. I mean, just absolutely amazing teams in the NFL.
Defense has gotten better, and you got to make the argument that their offense isn't as good as they were, but they still are doing good.
At this point, you could probably say that the defense and the offense are even. If not, you could make a pretty good argument saying that the defense right now is outperforming the offense, and it's really been the big part of them winning these past 2 games without Henry.
Tannehill's still playing well, looking like one of the better AFC quarterbacks overall. Not ready to call him elite, but I mean, if he just keeps putting out numbers,
I would say definitely a regression from last season, and then losing so many playmakers on their side too. Like it's definitely tough.
But he's definitely a winner, and right now he's got his team winning. Bottom line from this game, we knew this game wouldn't be like an ass kicking. We thought it would be pretty close, and just the Saints D just couldn't get the job done. So Titans move on to 8-2.
Oh, one last thing I want to mention before we go to the next game is Mark Ingram, who was a starting running back in this game, Alvin Kamara with a knee injury, became the Saints' all-time leading rusher in this ball game. He had 108 total scrimmage yards and a touchdown. He passed Deuce McAllister for the all-time leading rusher on the Saints
I love it. He comes
list.
back. It's like he couldn't have. There was a way he couldn't have broken the record, but the fact that he came back.
Yeah, with the trade with the Texans.
You think that was the reason why?
Yeah, the only reason why he came back.
Yeah. Moving on, Jaguars at the Colts in the classic AFC South matchup. Colts able to take this one pretty easily, leading 17-0. Ended up winning 23-17. Kind of went on cruise control after being up so much.
Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking towards the end, Stein, because like you said, 17-0 very early in this ballgame. It was 17-6 after the first quarter, but the Jaguars actually had a chance to take the lead late in this ballgame, but fortunately, the defense stepped up. The defense, besides Jonathan Taylor, was the big news in this ball game. They caused a fumble from Trevor Lawrence on the potential game-winning drive late in the ball game, and then they were able to just take a couple knees to finish off the deal. But definitely a closer game than expected, and then it really should have been, just with how good the Colts were to start out this ball game.
Yeah, Wentz has been pretty, I would say, a game manager-esque.
He had 6 straight games of multiple touchdown passes.
Yeah.
I mean, that streak ended in this ball game, but he had been playing very well, especially with limiting turnovers, something that he had a problem with in the past.
Definitely becoming more of a game manager, though, because he is taking backseat to Jonathan Taylor, who, with the absence of Derrick Henry, has emerged as the best running back in the NFL right now. 21 attempts, 116 yards, touchdown. Just had a break off. Was not effective though in the second half.
Yeah, this was a ball game where we saw him get loose very early. I think his first carry went for like 30-something yards, and then I think he had another carry for close to 50 yards in the ball game. But it ended up getting shut down in the second half. 7 carries for 9 yards in the second half. So the Jaguars defense really stepping up. I guess you could say really the past 2 weeks, shutting down the elite Bills offense last week. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor, we thought he was en route to about 200 yards in this one. But
yeah,
like
he was on pace for, I think he almost had, they said he had like 90-something yards in the first quarter or something, so he was on pace for something ridiculous.
Yeah, but with the Colts offense just really getting shut down late in the ballgame, I think in the second half, they ended up having a drive that led to a field goal, but they had 3 and outs, I believe, before that in the second half, so just absolutely doing nothing on the offensive side of the football. But like I said, with getting the early lead, it wasn't enough for them to end up losing this ball game. Really only other guy of note on the Colts offense, Michael Pittman, their number 1 receiver, still, even with T.Y. Hilton back in the ballgame, he had 5 catches for 71 yards leading this Colts receiving core.
Yeah, there's not really a superstar for the receiving, for the Colts receiving-wise. So right now, just expect Jonathan Taylor to really be that main offensive weapon for them. But like I said, the defense also stand out. In terms of the Jags, I'm just waiting for someone to tell me that Trevor Lawrence is going to be good, because right now it's just Because one of these days we'll say, like, oh, yeah, he's playing well, but he's just been playing painfully average, if not below average.
Yeah, I mean, 16 of 35, 162 yards, no touchdowns in the ballgame, had that crucial fumble late. If you look at his stats before the second half, I think he only had about 52 passing yards or something like that at halftime. So, yeah, Stein, I mean, it's just been middling numbers. You knew that the Jaguars were going to be a bad team. They've got some okay weapons around him, but I guess it's just going to take some time, get some more top draft picks in terms of getting maybe some offensive linemen, some offensive weapons around him. James Robinson was back in this ballgame. He looked okay, had a touchdown. So I guess Trevor just needs something more like his Clemson weapons that he had.
Yeah, and, Jamal Agnew, I mean, he's become a little bit of a weapon, had a 66-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, he's a guy that's mainly known for special teams work with some injuries to some wide receiver, to DJ Chark. He's kind of stepped up as a slot man. He actually had a 66-yard touchdown run in this ball game, so just like James Robinson having a rushing touchdown kind of helped out them in the rushing department. But like I said, just with Trevor, 162 passing yards, nothing really notable from him.
Yeah.
And then on the Colts, they are 5-1 versus teams with a losing record, Stein. 0-4 versus teams with a winning record. So we talked about their tough start to the season, kind of had an easier schedule. Now they're definitely going to need to prove themselves. If they want to be a playoff team, they're on the outside looking in right now, but they're finally back up to 500. They need to prove themselves in these next couple weeks, and they've got probably two of the toughest tests in the league when they're going to Buffalo next week to play the Bills, and then they have a home matchup against the Bucs. So that's definitely.
I'm
two
sure there's a
games
Titans in there
that will be
someplace.
Make and break for them.
I'm sure there's a Titans in there in the future for them too.
They've already lost both their games against the Titans this season.
So. That's one of their losses against the teams with winning records.
Mm-hmm.
But Colts are like a very are they good? Are they bad team?
Like I said, I mean these next 2 weeks, if they go 1-1 and go 6-6, I think they'll still have a chance. If they go 0-2, go down to 5-7, they're probably just about done because they would have to pretty much clean the table to go 10-7. Because I'm kind of calling like 10-7, maybe 9-8 is like the cutoff for that 7 seed right now as a wild card team. So if they end up losing both those matchups, they would have to rattle off 5 in a row at the end of the season.
Yeah, let's move on. Oh, bottom line of this game, the Colts are a hot team with Jonathan Taylor.
Oh yeah,
I would say he's really taking the mantle.
I was gonna say, and like you said, with Derrick Henry now injured, he's kind of taken over. I think he's now tied with him for the most rushing yards in the league, which is kind of scary for Derrick Henry to be out for 2 games, and just now somebody caught up to him.
Wow, that just shows you how we were going. But let's move on. We were talking about the wild card, so let's move on to 2 teams that are also in the wild card hunt right now, and that is the Browns going to Foxborough to take on the Patriots. In a similar game to the Falcons and the Cowboys, the Patriots destroy the Browns 45-7.
Yeah, one of multiple ass kickings on the day. The Browns got a touchdown, 11-play, 84-yard touchdown drive to begin the game, and then they didn't score the rest of the game. So after the great start, just got shut down from the Patriots defense. And the Patriots offense, surprisingly, putting up 45 points on the day, is arguably Mac Jones' best game of his NFL career so far. 19 of 23 passing, only 198 yards, but did have 3 touchdown passes for the first time in his career, making some nice passes. Obviously had the high completion percentage. The other rookie, the rookie running back, Ramondre Stevenson, he had 20 carries for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wasn't sure if he was going to play in this ballgame, was trying to get through the concussion protocol. His running back mate, Damian Harris, ended up not playing, so that opened up more of a bell cow role for him. You saw him have a great performance in this one. Hunter Henry, 2 touchdown catches in the ball game.
He's become a pretty hot tight end fantasy-wise.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith wasn't in there, so he got some more red zone looks. Kendrick Bourne had a touchdown in this ball game, a nice catch over 2 defenders. And Jacoby Myers even got in on the touchdown action. Of course, probably most people know this by now. Jacoby Myers had been one of the most notable stats where he had been in the league for about 3 years now, had over 1,500 receiving yards, over 100 catches, but no touchdowns overall in his career. And a couple weeks ago, he had a touchdown in the game, but it got called back because of a holding or something like that. So with Brian Hoyer, wasn't even Mac Jones, with Brian Hoyer in the game because it was already out of hand, he ends up getting his first career touchdown. And it was nice to see all of his teammates knew it because they all came and mobbed him in the end zone afterwards.
I love it.
So it was kind of a nice icing on top of the cake just for the Patriots onslaught.
Yeah, hopefully, I don't know what the record is for the most, games without
I know he had the record
yards
for the most receiving yards, and it was like double just about anyone else.
Wow.
So Denzel Mims of the Jets actually is like the second most, I think, now. There's some
Is
guy,
that active?
I think it's just ever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the second most right now. I think the guy that's actually in second place is like Ricardo Lewis, which I'm pretty sure he's been out of the league for a while.
Yeah. But wow, so, props to Jacoby Myers for finally getting that touchdown. I am a fantasy owner of him, so I don't think this makes his value super high. I might try to get rid of him, but
this could be the time to trade him. So
yeah, but I just got to reiterate how good Hunter Henry's been the past few weeks. He's definitely turned into more of a weapon for the Pats.
Well, and he's been a touchdown machine. Just like he's probably had 8 touchdowns in the past 6 games, maybe something like that.
Also, Mac Jones is definitely cementing his status as the best rookie quarterback right now. Really not putting up like eye-popping numbers though. He's not going to break any. He's not going to break Herbert or Cam Newton's or any of those records.
Oh yeah, no.
But definitely going to be on the short list of Rookie of the Year candidates offensively. So good for him. Ramondre Stevenson. I feel like if it was Damian Harris, they would have had similar numbers. Like I feel like you could have plugged and played anyone running back for them.
We were talking up the Browns defense. We said how they had the couple of rough games of giving up about like 40 plus points, and then they ended up playing well last week. So we're like, all right, well maybe this defense is once again taking a turn. But then obviously against that Patriots offense, once again it's really not super impressive. I mean, it's just the ground and pound. You got the game manager, Mac Jones, at quarterback. They really don't have very many notable receivers. So, but for them to give up 45 points against this Patriots team is definitely concerning. And with the Patriots, they're now in the 6th spot in the AFC playoff race right now. They're just a half game behind the Bills. They've won 4 straight after their 2-4 start. And up next, they've got the Bills twice. They've got the Titans.
That would be some good division.
And they've got the Colts for 4 of their next 5 games. So definitely some tougher teams, of course, in the division that could decide the division. And then some of those AFC North teams.
Yeah, they're not playing the Jets every weekend. They do have the Falcons next, which could on Thursday night, which me and Andrew will be attending that game. So that will be fun to see potential.
Maybe we'll put a curse on Mac Jones for the rest of the season.
Hopefully, not game manager boy. But the Pats have been a hot team. Their defense is also nothing to scoff at as well. They got some guys on that defense that can get it done and really got it done against Baker. Baker was just awful, 11 of 21, 73 yards. Remember I told you he wasn't going to be passing the ball this much in this game, even with the injury to, or the COVID-ness of Nick Chubb, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, Dearness Johnson stepped up and was fine once again in his kind of spot start. Almost 100 yards rushing, was just 1 yard away from that. And then he led the team receiving-wise, 7 catches for 58 yards. So,
so overall, 160, all-purpose yards for him. So that's good. But
the problem was he was really the only bright spot of this Browns offense because Baker had 73 passing yards on 21 attempts. He ended up leaving the game with a knee injury. He's considered day-to-day, so now just add that to his list of injuries. He's had the shoulder problem with his non-throwing shoulder, got a knee problem now, so the injuries piling up for him.
Yeah, wasn't his touchdown to Austin Hooper?
Yes, it was.
It was early in the ball game.
The first drive of the game.
But it was almost barely a catch. I think they went for it on 4th down too or something.
Yeah,
I was watching.
Did, and he missed it right up here at his face, and then he caught it like down here and was able to at least get control, put the 2 feet in bounds. So it was almost a turnover on downs.
Yeah, and the Browns have a not terrible span coming up playing the Lions, but they also have they do have their bye too. Will that be nice? But then they also have Ravens at home.
Yeah, I've never seen Stein where you play the same team twice, but then you got the bye sandwich in between. So they play the Ravens.
I've seen that before with the Falcons, with the Saints or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or the Bucs. They've done that.
I thought that was interesting scheduling wise, where they play the Ravens twice, but they got the bye week schedule sandwich.
I think they do that once for one team, like a year, because we didn't have this show last year this time, so. There was probably one team, like the Bills or something, that had this.
I was going to say, well, I guess there's your one team, the Ravens and the Browns this year. But we talked about how good the Patriots have been of late. Probably them and the Titans, the 2 hottest teams in the NFL. The Browns have been probably in one of the biggest slumps of any team in the NFL right now. They've lost 4 of their last 6 after they started out 3-1. They at least do have the Lions next week, so definitely a game where you can get back on track. Should have Nick Chubb back next week as well.
The Lions are hot. The Lions are hot though.
Coming off of a non-loss.
Yeah.
So you will probably have Nick Chubb back, but definitely have to monitor Baker to see if he'll be out there. Otherwise, you'll have a Case Keenum ball game.
Yeah, not a terrible backup, but you really want Baker for the future of this team. Bottom line, though, Pats are just coming in hot. Defense is good. Offense, despite 45 points, I still think is iffy. I don't know why. I just still think it's iffy.
Yeah, no, I think it's just because of the identity of the offense and being kind of ground and pound. They have so many different running backs and just not really having any notable pass catchers. I think if it comes down to it, the Patriots are going to have to win ball games. If they end up making the playoffs, they're going to have to win because of their defense.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Back-to-back ass kickings in the AFC East. Bills going to MetLife to take on the Jets, and Bills just imposing their will. And the legend of Mike White is officially over with a 45-17 performance.
Yeah, this was once again kind of like the Falcons game where it was like the stars all aligned for this just to be set up not well for the Jets after them having the Mike White game a couple weeks ago with them getting the victory against the Bengals, and then you saw him play well in this limited action against the Colts on Thursday Night Football. The Bills coming off of their 9-6 shocking loss of the year to the Jaguars. Like it all just lined up for the Bills to just absolutely annihilate a team, and that's what they did to the Jets. They were up 38-3 and 45-10 in this ball game, so this was never a ball game either. The offense got back on track. Josh Allen, 21 of 28, 366 yards, couple touchdowns and an interception. But Stephon Diggs was feasting all day. On his 13 targets, he turned that into 8 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, former Georgia Southern running back Matt Breida was in the end zone. I think this is the first time we've seen him in a while, rushing and pass catching.
This was the first time he was active since week 2.
Yeah, we saw him, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and Isaiah McKenzie
even getting a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, the Georgia product. Just the guy who famously was punching Saints players last year gets in the... that's the same Isaiah McKenzie.
Javon Wims was the guy you're thinking of for the Bears.
But they're both Georgia guys, right?
Yeah, it's a different Georgia receiver, though.
Yeah, from a Georgia receiver from a cold up north city. I knew that.
You narrowed it down there.
Yeah, but Bills in defense taking care of business as well.
Yeah, one of the best defenses in the league, and when you're facing a Jets offense, who's one of the worst offenses in the league.
We'll get to that. We'll get to what happened on offense for the Jets. But you got to give credit to the Bills defense with, I'll say it, 4 interceptions,
Yeah, Mike White doing his best Zach Wilson impersonation with the 4 picks in the ball game. 251 passing yards, didn't have a passing touchdown. So, like you said, the Mike White magic that was around for about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
This is the new Jeremy Lin of New York, right?
It is now gone. Zach Wilson, who they were talking about might be able to play in this ballgame. They're like, we'll give Mike White another chance. I think you might see Zach Wilson healthy enough to play in their next ballgame.
Yeah, we'll see when he comes back. And I know we talk about the bottom line at the end, but I just want to get it out of the way early that the legend of Mike White dies before he ever even got to play the Patriots. I know because they finished their Patriots matchups. I just don't want to. I just wanted to see what Belichick could have dialed up
you
for
think
this.
It'd be 6 picks? It'd be a.
I don't even know.
What's his name? Peterman. You think it'd be a Peterman performance?
A Peterman performance, exactly. Was that Peterman performance against the? I bet it was against the
I wouldn't
the
be
Patriots.
surprised. I mean,
because he was on the Bills. Yeah,
so it could have been. I honestly don't remember.
But this is a completely different Bills team, and they were rolling. Mike White, though, we already talked about it. Joe Flacco coming in a little mop-up duty. 3 of 3, 47 yards. Perfect completion percentage.
And a passing touchdown to Elijah Moore late in the ball game.
I wonder what his QBR on that would be.
The most disgusting thing, though, Stein, wearing number 19 out there. You actually mentioned before because Mike White's wearing number 5, that Joe Flacco would be wearing a different number. He's number 19, which is probably the worst quarterback number out there.
No, 22 is pretty bad.
Well,
that's in college, though.
I've always seen him wear number 22
I've seen
in the NFL.
98. One guy at Michigan wore it one time in 98.
Yeah, but in terms of the 1 through 19 for a quarterback number, that 19 is definitely your last
Johnny
last
Unitas?
option.
You making fun of Johnny Unitas?
Yeah, okay, when he played back in the 60s.
Yeah, okay. Not Javon. Is it
Michael Carter?
Michael Carter, yeah.
The other UNC running back.
Yes. Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. Carter actually didn't have a terrible game. 20 touches for 82 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, he's actually
garbage time though.
Yeah, he's been like one of their lone bright spots besides Mike White, obviously before this ball game.
Yeah,
he's really coming to his own over the past couple weeks, taking over as honestly closer to a bell cow back for this Jets offense, and has really had production even though they're trailing in ball games because he's able to get receptions.
Yeah, Corey Davis out of the last 2 games. Pretty good performance back, 5 of 93, but again, most of it's been garbage time. And as of lately, the Jets defense, 175 points allowed in the last 4 games. For a guy in Robert Saleh, who's the defensive-minded coach, I hate to see that. That's almost 44 points a game average.
And that's including the game that they won against the Bengals because it was a high-scoring affair. I don't remember what the final... It was like 35-31, 34-31, something like that. So just have absolutely getting annihilated on defense lately. And the Jets fall to 2-7 on the season.
Yes, Bills D rolls again, and the legend of Mike White dies. How long till we see Mike White on like the Washington football team or something?
Hey, I mean, even with the one good game, he may have earned himself a
That's true, a backup contract.
As a backup.
He might be in the league for a few more years.
Yeah, get that Chase Daniel money.
We'll see Zach Wilson out there throwing picks. I mean, I feel like Zach Wilson can throw picks just as good as Mike White can.
Yeah, and have more hype than he does.
Yes. All right. Then the meme game of the week. Let's move on to the Lions going to rainy, cold, frigid Pittsburgh in a 16-16 non-scorigami
Okay,
tie.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was just we thought this game would never end. As it bled into like the 4:30, 4:45. It started getting into the late games on red zone. But this was a game that instead of like wanting it to keep going because of great offense, like going into overtime and stuff, we just wanted it to end because of just the rainy, windy conditions. The offenses really couldn't do anything. There was a bunch of turnovers, so we just wanted this game to end.
I do have a fun fact on the scorigami of this game.
Yeah, what's up?
So it was a 16-16. The only other game that was there's 4 games, but the earliest one was 1938, the Washington Redskins versus the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Oh, they were playing the baseball team.
Yeah, I heard Justin Turner had a good game.
And Pee Wee Reese.
Yeah. And the last one was in 1973. I didn't realize that 16-16 was more of a common tie than people think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess going for 2, maybe not as much kicking back then, so you just go for 2, and so you get 2-point conversion. That's the 16-16. But
what just an ugly game. Big Ben was placed on the COVID list late.
Yeah, it was on Saturday.
Yeah, very late addition. Everyone was scrambling fantasy wise with all their receivers and run.
I was gonna say, I mean, who actually wants to start Big Ben on your?
Yeah,
fantasy
but I mean,
team?
like all the receivers. I started Freiermuth before I knew that Big Ben was gonna be out, and I never replaced him.
I mean, he had an okay game, like 5 catches for 31 yards. Did have a fumble very late in the ball game that ended up causing it to end up finishing in a tie.
But him and Ben were developing a connection, and that kind of sucked that he wasn't gonna be out there. Mason Rudolph. 30 of 50, 242 with a touchdown and a pick.
Yeah, you don't want Mason Rudolph throwing the ball 50 times.
Yeah, those are numbers from like last year. You can give me this exact same stat line and say it's from 2 years ago, and I'd be like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's just a Mason Rudolph stat line.
Yeah, Najee Harris though continues to develop. 26 for 105. So great numbers for him. But the name of the game was really just costly turnovers for the Steelers. I know it was rainy. I know it was wet, but Deontay Williams and Deontay Johnson. Sorry,
the other common last name.
Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth both had fumbles in overtime. It just went overtime. Lions had a chance though, but just some woeful kicking.
Yeah, who's it? Ryan Santoso, I think their kicker is. They're another team that's gone through the kicker carousel.
Yeah, and one of them was I barely. It looked like it was blocked, but it was just like the weirdest little knuckleball.
That's what it was. It was after the Deontay Johnson fumble. They had a 48-yard attempt, and that it was so low. That's what they were like. Oh yeah, it probably got blocked, and then they go in and like there wasn't even a hand near it. He just missed it that badly with the bad field conditions. So
and there was also, I think the last fumble was like with 16 seconds to go.
Yeah, that's what Freiermuth's fumble was with 16 seconds left. So then they tried like the hook and ladder at the end, and they ended up just running out of bounds. And that was just like the icing on top of the cake for the tie.
If you're gonna have a tie, it needs to end with like a play that just goes nowhere. You know,
and that's exactly what happened with them. Like trying to get into the end zone, have a couple of pitches, and then just nothing.
Yeah. The Steelers were also down. Minka Fitzpatrick after the game today tested positive for COVID, so that could be interesting around the cornerback room for them. Keep an eye out on that.
Yeah,
Big Ben also could be in jeopardy for Week 11.
Yeah, they're saying he actually has symptoms from COVID, even though he is vaccinated, so it could linger on throughout the week where he could end up missing next week's matchup. So it might be another Mason Rudolph game. And then T.J. Watt injured his knee/hip in the ball game. If you zoomed in on it, he kind of collided knees with another player and his knee bent inward. He was at least kind of walking around on the sideline under his own power, which was nice. His MRI also came back negative, but they're unsure if he's going to be able to play next week.
Yeah, it's just the Steelers have a tough road ahead of them. This bye did not help and ended their winning streak. They were getting pretty hot, but I guess missing Big Ben was probably. We always make fun of them, but this might have been the reason they lost because their offense was probably built to around Big Ben.
Yeah, and especially such like a late notice with it happening.
And you're going against the lowly Lions,
maybe
too.
Playing down to your opponent. But like you were kind of hinting at, Stein, they just have a brutal schedule the rest of the season.
Yeah, haven't even played the Ravens yet.
Yeah,
so.
7 of their 8 remaining games versus teams 500 or better. Like you said, they got to play the Ravens twice. Overall, got 4 divisional games. The AFC North, all those teams are 500 or better. So definitely could be some make or break games for the Steelers.
Yeah, probably play the Bengals again
they play the Bengals one more time and then the Browns one more time as well.
Yeah, so definitely some tough games for them. But let's give props to the Lion, Roach.
Yeah, hey, no loss this week. Once again, they had the bye week, no loss then.
Dan Campbell is a guy who hasn't lost in 2 weeks in a row, and that's awesome for them.
Yeah. So 0-1, that looks much better than 0-9 when you look at the stat sheet. There's not going to you could go 0-16-1, but not 0-17.
No team is going to go 0-17. So the 2017 Browns are popping the Andre. They're drinking Andre. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
they're drinking champagne, but it's Andre.
Some $5 champagne. But,
yeah.
The Lions, with the field conditions, actually ended up having a great rushing attack. 39 carries, 229 yards, so almost 6 yards a carry, and they had 2 rushing touchdowns in the ball game. And it wasn't just DeAndre Swift. I mean, he was definitely the leader, 33 carries for 130 yards. But Godwin, Igwabuike, and Jamar Jefferson both had rushing touchdowns in this ball game.
Jefferson had a nice, decently long rush touchdown. And you got to think what happens if they would have had Jamal Williams in there too.
He was inactive in this ball game. So their 3rd and 4th string running backs end up getting rushing touchdowns in this one. Jared Goff does nothing in this ball game.
Yeah, Hawkinson.
Yeah, he didn't have a catch in the ball game on just 1 target. I mean, and the other pass catchers is really no one of note. But he only had 114 passing yards. Apparently, he injured his oblique early in the first quarter and played through an oblique injury. Wasn't serious enough to take him out of the ball game. But he didn't have a touchdown in the ball game.
Who's their backup?
David Blau, I think, maybe. Remember Blau Mania from last year?
I don't even know if that was Blau Mania. More like, I don't even know.
Blauception.
Blau for a period.
Yeah, but yeah, it was pretty bad. But the Lions, with the rushing attack, not with Jared Goff, end up forcing the tie in this one, and it was one of those once it went to overtime with the field conditions and everything. I remember I told my dad, I was like, yeah, this is gonna end in a tie. It's just everything just kind of lining up for it to end that way.
Yeah. Bottom line from this game, Roach, the Lions didn't lose in back-to-back weeks, but they're still a bad team. Yeah. I mean, even though they didn't lose, let's not give them any credit for tying.
They go to Cleveland to face the Browns, and then they got Chicago in the next 2 weeks. So 2 games where it could be winnable. I mean, you don't know which Browns team you're going to get. And then the Bears. The Bears are the Bears. They got Matt Nagy, so there's always a chance to win.
Yeah, anyone going against Matt Nagy has a chance to win. All right, the next game, which was probably the lone upset of the 1 o'clock window, and that was the Buccaneers going to Roujon, Maryland, to take on the Washington football team. Washington football team getting it done because the Bucs just not able to get it done early. A few interceptions from Brady and just some turnovers. Even I think it was a blocked punt, I want to say.
I don't know if there was a blocked punt in the ball game. They did have the 2 early interceptions from Tom Brady that really got them behind the 8 balls. They got a quick 10-0, quick 13-0 lead for the Washington football team. And now back-to-back losses for this Bucs team as they lost before their bye week against the Saints, had the bye, and then coming off the bye week end up getting another loss. So they fall to 6-3 now on the season. And what really capped off the ball game, besides the interceptions and getting down early, was that Washington football team drive to end the game. Everyone's been talking about it today, Stein. A 19-play, 80-yard touchdown drive. Took 10 minutes and 26 seconds off the clock. There was just 29 seconds left after they end up getting the touchdown to take the 29-19 lead and just absolutely finish off the game. They went 4 for 5 on third down on the drive. The only time they didn't convert was when they went to fourth down. Antonio Gibson caps it off with a 1-yard touchdown run.
God, those are the drives that option, teams love to hear. A 10-minute drive, that is keeping the ball in your offense's hand and keeping Tom Brady and that defense off the field. You got to love that, Roach.
Mm-hmm.
Just Taylor Heineke also having a decent game, 26 of 32, 256 with a touchdown. We already talked about
Antonio
Gibson. I was saying AJ Gibson. Gosh, my names have been bad today. 24 of 64 with 2 touchdowns, getting it done with those touchdowns. And then, of course, Scary Terry, 6 of 59.
And had a big catch on that final drive, too, for a third down conversion where he took a huge shot and was able to hang on to the football.
Yeah, there's one bad thing that happened for this Washington team in this win against a good Bucs team, and that was the loss of Chase Young, who tore his ACL and is now out for the season.
Yeah, that's what, once I saw it happen, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be a torn ACL, because it was kind of a non-contact injury where he's coming around the edge, like he was kind of getting blocked by the tackle, but he really just was just in space and then just held onto his knee where it just planted, and you could tell he
his face was
so.
in pain and agony.
Yeah,
and
needed help to get off the field, so you knew that was definitely a bad sign, and that was going to be the worst case scenario, which ended up being the case. But he's out for the season. We've talked about how this Washington football team has struggled on the defensive side from what we expected them going into the season, from what they did last season. So losing Chase Young, even though they got the win, a very bittersweet victory since they lose their best guy
they've
on
won,
defense.
but at what cost?
Yeah, exactly.
Just standing in front of Brady is always a good thing, but I hope this doesn't motivate the Bucs to really play better. Brady was not as good as his MVP candidate form that we kind of predicted. 23 of 34, only 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, but did have some costly interceptions at the beginning. In fact, starting out with a 3-and-out and then back-to-back picks, including one off the receiver, where the receiver kind of batted it. And
yeah, it was Jalen Darden, a rookie, so they were missing AB, missing Gronk once again in this ballgame, so some other receivers had to step up. So the rookie, it ends up hitting off of his hands, going up in the air, and then getting caught by the Washington football team defender. So that one wasn't his fault. The other interception was his fault on a bad throw. But yeah, once again, just not a Brady-like performance that we expect. Really, all these quarterbacks that are in the MVP conversation have all kind of had their 1 or 2 games where they just haven't been playing well. Lamar, we saw on Thursday Night Football, not having a good game.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers missing a game because of COVID. Kyler
didn't even
missing
play,
the past 2 games because of an ankle injury.
Russell didn't even score a point.
Yeah, so I mean, all these quarterbacks that are in the MVP conversation
have been in the MVP.
Yeah, they've just had at least their 1 or 2 games where they've struggled. So it's really kind of kept the door wide open, and we'll see in the second half who can really take the reins and end up winning the award.
Yeah, so with Brady not being as effective, the Bucs kind of rely on their run game, giving Leonard Fournette 19 touches. So when you have a running back room with with Rojo and Giovanni Bernard, and you're giving Fournette 19 touches, it seems like they could have spread him around a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, Fournette's turned into the bell cow in this offense.
Yeah.
Ronald Jones only had 1 snap in the ball game. I think Gio Bernard only had 1 catch in the ball game, so they've really turned this into Fournette's backfield.
Yeah, Mike Evans being the only receiver of note, 2 of 62 with a touchdown, including a nice 40-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I was going to say, really the only guy of note because he had the 40-yard touchdown. That was pretty much all he had for the stat line for the day. So just this whole Bucs offense taking a hit just because the 2 picks early and then the long drive from Washington football team late just kept that elite Bucs offense off the field.
Chris Godwin also had some decent yards, but didn't get that touchdown, so really kind of hampered his day fantasy. Also, Vita Vea, the stalwart on that on defensive line for the Bucs, slight MCL sprain, avoided kind of a serious injury, but this could be a few weeks.
Yeah, any sort of MCL sprain, even a slight one, he's probably going to miss a game, maybe 2. So definitely good that it's not season ending like it was for Chase Young,
yeah.
But still, Vita Vea, of course, the stalwart in the middle, just kind of the stopgap in there for him to miss any sort of time. This Bucs defense,
he
we've
eats
seen in the
running
secondary with all the injuries, so now missing up front too. They've definitely been bitten by the injury bug.
Yeah, bottom line, surprise of the day, I would say, and just a bad start for the Bucs made it easy for the Washington to capitalize.
Yep.
All right. And I would say next game is the most exciting game of the weekend, and that is the Panthers. And the news that came out, we talked about it. Cam Newton joining the Panthers, and them just getting a shot of adrenaline and momentum, going to Glendale to take on the Cardinals, and just imposing their will, 34-10.
Yeah, that's what. No Kyler Murray, no DeAndre Hopkins once again for the Cardinals, and we thought even without those two guys that they had a chance to.
They still have a good defense, you know?
And a chance to win this ball game against a Panthers team that's really been struggling of late. But like you said, Cam Newton really gave this offense a boost that they needed. No Sam Darnold. P.J. Walker steps in as the starter, but Cam steals the show. As on the first two drives of the ball game, he comes in on third down from the 2-yard line, gets a rushing touchdown, ends up taking his helmet off and yelling to all the fans there in Arizona.
They had the 4K cam on him, too.
Yeah, yelling, "I'm back, I'm back." Gets the 15-yard penalty for it for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah, had a really weird press conference afterward, of course.
Yeah, I saw him and Robbie Anderson taking a selfie after the game, who he threw a passing touchdown to him on the next drive. So just a couple highlights from Cam Newton in his limited playing time there.
I think the quote was he was talking about how Moses went into the desert and he was in the desert or something like that.
Okay. I knew he also said something about not being familiar with the playbook, and he said he was basically familiar enough to get 2 touchdowns out there, so that's how familiar he was.
So are we seeing a return to that 2015 Panthers, Roach?
I think we might need to pump the brakes on that a little bit with just the limited. I mean, successful in the limited snaps that he played, but yeah, let's not go back to a team that ended up going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, going 15-1 in the regular season.
To that type of Panthers.
I feel like Sam Darnold is still the starter, healthy. Like a healthy Sam Darnold is the starter.
I mean, Sam Darnold might not even be back this season.
No, I mean, but I feel like if he was healthy, he would still be the starter. Well, obviously, he wouldn't be in this. We wouldn't be in this camp situation. But if he was, let's say his injury wasn't as bad, like a Russell Wilson type, I think Sam Darnold would be the guy that they bring back. But right now, they just have they got Cam, and I think there's no looking back. Like this is them going back to their ex, and they're like. You know, Darnold's calling them up like, hey, like, we still on? And they just send them on voicemail.
Well, and like I said, the thing that's even weirder is that this is a different coaching staff and a whole different regime from when he was there originally, obviously, with Matt Rule and company there. Yeah. But Matt Rule came out and said today that Cam will take most of the first-team reps this week, so if he's comfortable enough with the playbook, with the offense, he's going to be the starter next week for them in Week 11.
Yeah. Also, CMC, another return to form game. Didn't get that touchdown, but 13 for 95 rushing, 10 receptions for 66 yards. A pretty CMC performance.
I would say that's vintage Christian McCaffrey in terms of the volume with the 23 touches, the 10 catches on 10 targets. Really, the only thing missing from it was a touchdown in the ball game, but still a very great performance for Christian McCaffrey.
And this win puts the Panthers in the wild card conversation right now as the 7th seed.
Yeah, they took over the Falcons spot, they were actually the 7th seed going into Week 10.
So the NFC South could be a little bit of a grudge match.
Yeah, and the Saints right now are in the playoffs as well, so you could have 3 teams in the NFC South, surprisingly.
Yeah, what a bad division of football. I think almost every team, or besides the Panthers, I think every NFC South team lost.
Yeah, and the Panthers have been the streakiest team this season, where they started out 3-0. They lost 4 in a row. They've now won 2 of their last 3, and they kind of have an easier part of their schedule coming up. They just finished through a rough stretch. They got the Washington football team, the Dolphins, and the Falcons upcoming, but then they go back to a rough stretch at the end of the season because they got to play the Bills, the Bucs twice. They haven't played them yet this season, and then the Saints. So the Panthers, if they want to stay in this playoff conversation, need to win at least 2 out of 3 against these next 3.
Yeah, win their next 3, which they easily can do. They do have the Cam versus Rivera matchup next week, which would be interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people already bringing up those headlines with talking about Cam today and his performance from Sunday.
for the Cardinals, which we're Cardinals guys. I feel like we're both Cardinals guys. Let's go back to the Cards.
I like a lot of guys in the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, my starting fantasy quarterback, definitely been missing him these past 2 weeks.
Yeah, Colt McCoy is in a performance not as good as his last week's performance at all.
Not quite a Mike White performance, but in terms of what he did last week compared to this week, that kind of impression, as he only had 107 passing yards, had no touchdowns, 2 turnovers in the ball game, and he left the game diagnosed with a pec strain. Apparently, if Kyler's not able to go this upcoming week, then he's healthy enough to play. But obviously, if you are the Cardinals, you're hoping that Kyler will be healthy enough and you won't have to worry about Colt McCoy being out there.
Yeah, and Chris Streveler, like 6 of 9, 36 yards. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, a South Dakota product. This was his second season. I'd never heard of the guy.
No,
but
I don't know FCS guys that well.
Yeah, when Colt McCoy got hurt in the ball game and they said that Chris Streveler was coming in, I was like, I have no idea who that guy is.
Yeah, just a team the team just 169 yards, not great.
Yeah, of total offense.
Yeah.
Like, not passing yards, not of rushing yards, of total offense in the ball game.
Your boy James Conner, only 13 attempts. I mean, 13 attempts for only 64 yards.
Still
Did get
got
a garbage time
touchdown.
Still stealing touchdowns, Rich. I know how you love his touchdowns.
Hey, I mean, when Kyler comes back, if James Conner can just not get a single touchdown once Kyler comes back for the rest of the season, I would be so happy since he's been stealing all of them from him. He gets one more, still leading the league in touchdowns right now, and he's still going to be the workhorse running back since Edmonds is on IR for the next couple weeks.
Yes, Cardinals now with that loss are going to fall to the 2nd seed. Who are they behind, Rich?
They're behind the Packers.
Behind the Packers.
Yeah, they're the same record, but the Packers have the head-to-head since they won that Thursday night football game a couple weeks ago.
I was going to question if it was the Rams right now. Y'all, we are currently watching the Rams and the Niners. These are guys in the Cards division, of course, and the Niners with a defensive touchdown. Already, and a George Kittle touchdown.
I was going to say a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. So back-to-back games where the Rams have kind of gotten off flat to start out. I think Matt Stafford's thrown a couple of interceptions so far to start. So you saw it against the Titans last week, and now once again in primetime against the 49ers this week.
Yeah, so this NFC West could be another wild West division. Bottom line from this game, though, I said this was a little glimpse of that 2015 magic for the Panthers. I'll agree with you to pump the brakes. The Cards are still good, though. Let's not get that wrong. They're still a good team.
Kind of like the Ravens, where, I mean, you're missing your star playmakers if you have one bad week without having those guys out there.
And they did not game plan for Cam Newton at all. Cam Newton was not part of the equation a week ago when they first put this game in their planning phases. So the fact that he was able to come in there and give him 2 touchdowns, really just kind of ruined the Cards' chances.
Mm-hmm. So let's go into the next game during the 4 o'clock window, and that is the Vikings going to SoFi Stadium and beating the Chargers 27-20. Vikings move to 4-5 on the season. Chargers fall to 5-4. And a stat that they put up on the graphic during the game's time that I thought was very interesting, but I also kind of believe it because it's the Vikings. The Vikings are apparently the only team this season to have a lead of 7 points or more in every single one of their ball games. So when you hear that stat, you're like, oh, the team's probably like 7-2 or maybe like 8-1, 6-3. But the Vikings are 4-5 this season, and it's just because every single one of their games has been close. Their 5 losses this season have been by a combined 18 points, Stein. So all these close ball games, the missed clutch field goals, the overtime losses, it's just typical, like, on brand for the Vikings. And we were talking about how the Chargers were always in that same situation as well. So we thought this would come down to the wire to some sort of like game-winning field goal or something like that.
Yeah,
but
this
ended up
totally sounded like a game-winning field goal.
Yeah, I mean, it was a touchdown difference, but it really didn't come down to that. So Kirk Cousins in the ball game, 25 of 37, 294 yards. He had 2 touchdowns and then 1 turnover, a fumble in the ball game. He was looking for Jack Conklin in the red zone because he had 2 touchdowns from 5 yards out and 1 yard out. And then Justin Jefferson, a great game against this great Chargers secondary. 9 catches for 143 yards.
Dare we say gritty?
Just about all of his catches were for about 20 yards or more, so a nice performance from him.
Yeah, and your boy Dalvin getting it done, running the ball, 24 for 94 with a tutty. Just pretty good. Should be out there for week 11, despite the off-the-field issues that have sprung up but kind of disappeared, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we mentioned last week during the preview, how he was going to be out there and pretty much should be out there unless any sort of like new breaking news comes out. The NFL is just going to kind of wait for it, kind of everything to come out in the legal proceedings to run their course. So expect him to still be out there in Week 11, coming off a nice performance this past week.
Yeah, and I real quick, Roach, I know you were at that Florida State game this weekend,
yes.
Able to get the dub versus the U.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great start and then kind of sweating towards the end because Florida State, like the Falcons, love to give up leads. So we're trailing by 8 late in the ball game, but able to get a big fourth down conversion late in the ball game and scored with less than a minute to go to get the victory.
And I was actually at the Tech Boston College game, and Boston College was scoring at will against. It was 38 to like.
I was gonna say
30.
Tech
It was close.
Scoring points too.
Tech was scoring points, but there was a few dumb play calls by Jeff Collins. I think they went for it on fourth down once or twice in no man's land, and it was like, really, like, let's punt it away. But anyways, so that was our college minute.
the college coverage for the day.
But let's go to the Chargers side of the ball. When I would say this is Justin Herbert's worst game.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers...
One of his worst.
It's kind of hard to predict the Chargers because they got off to such a hot start this season. Started out 4-1, but now they've lost 3 of their last 4. And Herbert, besides the game last week where he ended up looking very well in their win, he's looked bad in all 3 of their losses. I mean, 20 of 34, 195 yards, just a touchdown and an interception. I think the 195 pass yards were either his worst or second worst in his NFL career. Austin Eckler, not a very good game for him either, just 44 yards on the ground. Did have a receiving touchdown to save his fantasy day. Keenan Allen, 8 catches for 98 yards, but really no one else of note on this Chargers offense who, when we talk about previews, we talk about pretty much every guy on their offense of being like fantasy relevant, but it was really only like 2 or 3 guys that were actually making an impact this past week. Yeah,
Chargers, right now aren't taking advantage of the opportunities they're given, and especially with the Chiefs team that's starting to turn the corner, it seems. The Broncos and the Raiders are both also going in the wrong direction. So right now they are listed as the 7th seed, but just have lost 3 of 4 after that really hot start. Do have some nice winnable games, I would say, against the Broncos and the Giants.
I was going to say, they got some teams hovering around
even the Steelers too,
that they're playing. Steelers, Broncos, Bengals, and Giants. So, like, 3 of those 4 teams are around 500, and then the Giants are a couple games under 500. So, these are games that they definitely need to take advantage of, especially a game against the Broncos, against the division. So, where all these teams are all jam-packed together, they really need to win those division matchups.
Yeah, also, we didn't mention the Vikings are also in the playoff conversation as the very last seed.
They're the first seed out because it's the 7 teams. They're currently listed as the 8th seed. They've got the Packers, 49ers, and Lions all upcoming. So one divisional matchup and then a game against two against teams under 500.
Yeah, 2-1. They could easily take that in 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about how the Vikings are just like they're always set up to be that like 500 team. They're looking like they're gonna finish up around 9-8, 8-9 once again.
Yeah. Bottom line, though, because it's the Chargers and the Vikings, it's just a meme game as it all. And I like to say this game should have been the tie, kicking-wise.
It really should have been.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the 425 games. And I feel like this game has already happened this year just because see the Broncos at 425, but the Eagles taking on the Broncos. And the Eagles able to get the easy win, 30-13. And funny stat about the Eagles, all 4 games that they've won have been on the road.
Yeah, they're 4-2 on the road and 0-4 at home this season. So they've definitely been the road warriors and getting another road victory to improve to 4-6. Broncos falling to 5-5. There's really not much to talk about in this ballgame, even though it was 30-13. It was just kind of like they were like showing it on Red Zone, but there was nothing really notable. Jalen Hurts, 16 of 23, 178 yards. 2 touchdowns and an interception. He had 14 carries for 53 yards, so his typical dual threat type game. Devontae Smith, back-to-back good games, 4 catches for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's got 3 touchdowns now in the past 2 weeks. The running game without Miles Sanders was once again effective between Jordan Howard and Boston Scott. They combined for 23 carries, 164 yards, so around 7 yards a carry, so both of them combined getting it done. Jalen Hurts actually joined some special company. Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, and RG3. So one of 4 guys to have 2,000 passing yards, 500 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns in his team's first 10 games. So, like
definitely
I said, one of 4 quarterbacks to do that.
Wow, that's awesome. Great company to be in. Definitely a guy who's made improvements overall every single week. I feel
he's been a great fantasy quarterback 3 overall, but still I think kind of questions with the 4-6 record and with some of the games that he's had. Will he be their long-term quarterback?
Yeah, his passing ability has definitely been in question, but his running ability has been a factor. Devontae Smith, like we said, also been a receiving option for them, kind of coming into his own, getting 2 touchdowns. Kind of turning into the official number 1 for an Eagles team that's just lacked receiving depth for so long. The Eagles did lose Dallas Goedert, left the game with a concussion.
Yeah, that's a big loss for them, as he's pretty much like their second wide receiver on this team.
Yeah,
besides Devontae Smith.
He's Jalen's check down machine, obviously as a tight end. But big game Slay. Talk about old guys bringing out 83-yard scoop and score. Really, what a great guy, and just old guy out there getting it done.
Yeah, that's what the game was still kind of close at this point when they had the scoop and score, and Teddy Bridgewater kind of got a lot of flack because if you go back and watch
he didn't go for the tackle.
Yeah, he kind of just, if they show the replay, he just watched his Darius
did a Cam Newton,
Yeah, with the fumble in the Super Bowl, but he just watched him as he ran by and gets the 83-yard scoop and score, and that really put the game out of reach. Nothing really of note on the Broncos offensively.
What do you think about those jerseys, though? You like those orange?
I like the oranges.
Crush?
Yeah, the oranges aren't bad, especially the all-orange look that they had. But Teddy was 22 of 36, 226 scoreless yards. Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams were actually the second best running back tandem in this ball game. Just 17 carries for 93 yards combined. Melvin Gordon did have a rushing touchdown and a fumble in this ball game, but the Broncos falling to 500, and they've got some important games coming up. 5 of their last 7, I should say, remaining games against divisional opponents. They haven't played the Chiefs yet this season or the Chargers yet, so definitely some winnable ball games and definitely some games, when we were talking about the Chargers, that they need to win because the division is so tight.
Yeah, I really see the Broncos being one of the teams on the outside of this AFC West looking in. I just don't think they're as strong as they're overall. I mean, they have these random wins just like the Eagles do. Like, these two teams are pretty similar in style, and that's kind of the bottom line of this game. And both of them just get these random wins. I mean, we saw them the last week, the Cowboys for the Broncos, and the Eagles, just beating the Falcons, beating the Broncos, just random wins all around for these guys.
And their team's kind of like the Vikings, where they're just going to kind of hover around 500, probably not make the playoffs, or if they do, they're going to be the last seed and then lose in the first round.
Yes. All right. Moving on to... I just got to quickly mention, Roach. Remember we talked about in our preview show, the Eagles were one of your make-or-break teams for your record, and you picked the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, they actually ended up treating me well, but too bad overall when we get to the final records, it really didn't end up mattering.
Yes,
because
the primetime game.
Head-to-head games, I ended up losing.
The primetime game was the one that saved me. I don't know why you thought the Raiders were.
Well, I also picked the Browns to beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
You saw how well that worked.
Yeah. But this next game, just a boring game. The Seahawks going to snowy Lambeau, where the Packers pitch a shutout, 17-0.
Yeah, who thought with the 2 quarterbacks coming back with Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, think you'd have an offensive performance? But like you said, with the snowy conditions, and I guess both quarterbacks being a little rusty, that was not the case. As this was actually a 3-0 ball game going into the fourth quarter, so pretty much no offense at all. But once the offense started kicking the gears, it was A.J. Dillon getting the job done. He had 21 carries for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 62 receiving yards, a big 50-yard catch where he broke a couple of defenders. So he had a great game, and he's going to need to have some great games upcoming, because Aaron Jones, who had 86 yards total from scrimmage in this ball game, ended up leaving, and they diagnosed him with a mild MCL sprain, saying he's going to miss 1 to 2 games.
Yeah, so A.J. Dillon, though, stepping up in his absence. Other guys for the Packers on the offense, Aaron Rodgers in his return, 23 of 37, 292. Surprising stat number in a snowy environment, and for only scoring 17 points. Devontae Adams doing Devontae Adams things, didn't get that touchdown, but 70 for 78. 7 catches for 78. pretty good. Packers right now in the driver's seat for the NFC, as we mentioned, as the number one, looking like one of the better teams. I still think they have some flaws, but they are looking better.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a loss since week 1, since Jordan Love got that loss last week against the Chiefs, so he's been on a roll, even though this wasn't his best ball game. They are the 1 seed, like I mentioned, because they have the tiebreaker over the Cardinals. They got the Vikings, the Rams, and the Bears in their next upcoming game. So definitely 2 out of those 3 very winnable, and especially with the Rams, how they've been playing the past couple games, that could be advantage to the Packers on their side. But they're looking to be set up as one of the top seeds in the NFC. For the Seahawks, they now fall to 3-6 on the season. Obviously, a lot of that happening without Russell Wilson. He was 20 for 40 in this ballgame for just 161 yards, didn't have a touchdown pass, and had 2 interceptions, both of them in the end zone. And his 2 stud wide receivers, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, had 16 targets, but only turned that into 5 catches for 49 yards. So definitely a big factor in terms of the Seahawks not getting on the scoreboard.
Yeah, what a terrible performance all around for this offense. That was just didn't even get a field goal. Gerald Everett was the best weapon, you could say, with 8 for 63. I mean, DK gets ejected. Tyler Lockett just ineffective. What did DK do to get ejected? I was not privy to.
He grabbed the face mask of the defender, and I think he eventually ended up throwing a punch at him. It was when it was 17-0 late in the ball game, so maybe just some hurt
frustration.
Feelings, and blowing off some frustration.
And you already said that both of Russ's interceptions came in the end zone, so just
one was
drive killers.
One was when they were in the red zone. One was he was trying to hit Tyler Lockett on a deep pass. He threw it in double coverage, ended up getting picked off in the end zone. So Russ definitely rusty after missing the past couple weeks with that finger injury, so look for him to try and get back on track next week.
Yeah, they're good for a few more wins, I think, overall, but Roach, they have a tough schedule coming up.
Yeah, and they got with having 6 losses on the season, they're pretty much going to need to win out just about the rest of the way, maybe have 1 loss or 2 and they'd be okay, but yeah, they've got some tough divisional matchups still. They got to play the Cardinals twice, and they also still have to play the Rams, so that's the toughest part of their remaining schedule. Otherwise, they have a couple winnable games, so I wouldn't count them out with Russ being back, but they're going to need to play pretty much near perfect football.
Yeah, bottom line, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are back, so football should be more exciting. I feel like if this game would be in a dome or something, this game would be a lot higher scoring.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on now to the final game from Sunday Night Football, and the Chiefs got back to the normal Chiefs with a 41-14 victory over the divisional Raiders. Chiefs moved to 6-4, now in sole possession of first place in the AFC West. Finally back to that position after being in last place for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the Raiders now falling to 5-4 on the season. But the offense for the Chiefs, that was really the big storyline with Pat Mahomes and just that entire offense getting back on track.
Yeah, Pat Mahomes back to Patrick Mahomes numbers. 35 for 50 for 406 yards and 5 touchdowns. Those are college numbers, Roach. I don't know how you put those up in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably about the numbers he put up combined over the past 3 weeks. Remember, he had been on such a tough stretch of games recently.
Yeah.
So just a great performance from him. No turnovers for him. We know the Chiefs have been one of the most turnover-prone teams in the league.
Yeah.
I think that's now back-to-back weeks where they had a turnover on a punt return, but in terms of their offense, I think that's
no
back-to-back
Patrick
weeks
Mahomes
now
caused
with no
turnovers. Yeah.
Yes.
Travis Kelce, 8 for 119. Travis Kelce-esque things.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, finally another good performance from him. 7 for 83, 2 touchdowns. The big one, though, was Darrell Williams, Roach.
Yeah, I mean, 11 carries for
done.
43 yards as the starting running back, but as a receiver, 9 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown, an impressive kind of jump ball. It was a very Patrick Mahomes type play where he's on the run right by the line of scrimmage. He ends up throwing it off his back foot, and the running back goes up and actually goes for the jump ball and comes down with it. So a great performance from him. Darrell Williams has really been impressive since Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been down. Edwards-Helaire might be back next week, so it could be interesting to see if he ends up being active, how they split up the workload, if they give the reins fully back to Edwards-Helaire, or if they try and mix in Darrell Williams a little bit more, maybe have them split carries.
Yeah, after a good performance like that, I guess Darrell will be more, even though Clyde is not a terrible pass-catching back, I feel like they'll probably get him back more slowly, because after a performance like that, you really got to feed the hot hand. The Chiefs right now are the 4 seed, but this could easily change. They're on a 3-game win streak. Do have a great game against the Cowboys next week, both two, like we said earlier, the hottest offensive teams. So that could be just an amazing matchup for guys who are going to be putting up a lot of numbers fantasy-wise, y'all. So we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, and then after that, they've got play all 3 teams in the division in back-to-back weeks. So like we said, just a tight AFC West division. Those are going to be some key matchups for them.
They got the Raiders at home as well, because that game was in Las Vegas. And just the poor Raiders getting embarrassed. Just after some inspirational wins, things have been getting pretty shitty.
Yeah, this was close for a little. It was a 17-14 ball game, and really when all the tides turned, not saying that this was going to be the difference in the Raiders actually winning this ball game, was on Deshaun Jackson, his debut as a Raider, ends up having a 38-yard catch, a nice catch downfield, and then ends up stopping, waiting for a defender to come and hit him, and he gets the ball poked free, and the turnover.
It looked like he was trying to do it looks like he was trying to find a guy to pitch it to, even
though he's the only guy down there, and he got 2 Chiefs defenders nearby him, and those were the closest people.
Yeah, this is shades of Terrell Owens, or when he did that. I don't know why he could easily kept going. We know he has the legs too.
Yeah,
so
if he kept going, he probably would have had a touchdown or at least been tackled inside the 10-yard line or something like that. But he ends up fumbling on the play. Chiefs go down the field and end up getting a touchdown. So like I said, that was the turning point, but it's not necessarily saying that the Chiefs wouldn't have ended up winning the ball game if they didn't get that. The offense was really clicking all night.
Yeah. Carr with a pretty, average stat line, 25 of 35, 261, 2 touchdowns, with a really bad interception on, just a lot of terrible deep balls.
I don't know what his throws were tonight, because he was just throwing the balls straight. I think he was just trying to throw them straight up in the air. When he was throwing his deep balls, they just had so much air under them. I thought he was just trying to throw them and they come back down right on the line of scrimmage.
They're not in Dallas. They're not trying to hit the video board or something. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to see how high he can get it in that.
Yeah, he only had 1 interception, but he honestly could have had 2 or 3 in this ball game where he threw it so high. He was just asking for some of those Chiefs defenders to run under them.
And we know this is not a great Chiefs defense too, but the way the Raiders played, they just kind of gave it away.
Yeah, they've been playing. The Chiefs defense has been playing better the past couple weeks. Obviously Jordan Love at quarterback, but only giving up 7 points to the Packers and then 14 points now this week to the Raiders. So maybe starting to get back on track for this Chiefs defense, and it's definitely helpful to not only see them get back on track, but the offense get back on track. So maybe we can finally say the Chiefs are back. I feel like we've been trying to say it for the past 6 weeks now that they're back.
And this game against the Cowboys will be probably the real test, because this is a contender, whereas I think the Raiders are definitely more of the pretender. Right now, they are listed as the last guy out, or the first guy out, excuse me. They have been really streaky as of late, but they do have an interesting kind of stretch facing the Bengals, the Cowboys, and Washington football team. Oh, see, they are going to the Cowboys, so he can try to touch the...
Man, that's what he's training for. He's training for 2 weeks ahead. But yeah, so a couple of tough games, and then the Washington football team coming off a win against the Bucs. So could be a couple interesting matchups for the Raiders, who it's a team that's really kind of hard to tell, if they're a legit team or if they're just kind of just going to hover around 500 all
I think
season.
With everything that's happened to them, I think we can fair to say, in the Chiefs right now just kind of taking that mantle again, I think we can fair to say that they are going to be left out of the big dance, left without a partner when the music stops, Rich, if you know what I'm saying.
I think you're right, Stein. But anyways, guys, that's our full recap of Week 10. We got the 49ers leading the Rams 14-7 right now. I think they're in the second quarter.
Yes, it's 7 minutes in the second quarter, and a pretty fast-moving ball game. It's been kind of back and forth right now. The Rams getting a little bit of momentum. I don't know who scored the touchdown for the Rams. Tyler Higbee touchdown. All right, great to see that for my fantasy team. He's on my bench. Love it.
Oh, there you go.
I started Pat Fremuth.
Yeah, we both picked the Rams in this ball game, but this has no implications towards our final record head-to-head because I already lost this week. with picking the Raiders and then, like I said, picking the Browns as well. So, Stein, I'm down bad. I've lost 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and just our records are kind of getting bad. Remember our 12-4 picks? Those were the days.
Yeah, I'm 6-6-1. You're 7-5-1 right now. Obviously, like I said, we both picked the Rams, but overall, I'm 2 games ahead of you. But we'll have our punishment and on our preview show, our Week 11 preview
on Friday morning.
Yeah,
we'll be recording Friday morning.
But anyways, guys, that's gonna finish it up for this video. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram at The Couch Quarterbacks. Like I said, we will see you guys later on in the week. Andrew Rochford, Ben Steinberg. See you guys on the flip side.
Deuces.